David Kellerman's Fate and the Globalist Itinerary, Part 2. Further Evidence of Targeting. The story of David Kellerman is just an example of what has been going on throughout American history by powers that have been in control from behind the scenes from the onset of this nation's beginning. In their eyes, sometimes extreme measures are needed to take control of destiny. For example, this past November 22, 2008, Jim Marrs, the noted author and lecturer, was able to present evidence about the Kennedy family at a national conference in Dallas. What Jim was able to present was evidence that there was a conspiracy enacted on the Kennedy family over a period of 55 years. First starting with Joseph Patrick Kennedy Jr. in 1944, the attempted assassination of President-elect JFK in 1960, as well as his actual assassination in 1963, as well as the alleged airplane accident which his brother Ted endured in 1964, followed by the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy in 1968, and finally the murder of JFK's son, John F. Kennedy Jr., in a staged aircraft accident in 1999. These 6 incidents that have occurred to the Kennedy family have an attribute in common that conclusively points to a common perpetrator or a group of conspirators that carried out all 6 events. That common thread being that over the span of 55 years, all occurred within a 60-minute interval of each other. This may not have been immediately obvious if an alternate but scientifically accepted convention for ascribing time of day were applied, such as astronomically determined sidereal time. Sidereal time is routinely used by all astronomers, NASA, and the Department of Defense for their space-based applications. The likelihood that these 6 Kennedy attacks might randomly occur within a 60-minute interval out of a 24-hour day are 1 in 191 million. See the companion YouTube video, The Common Thread Within the Kennedy Anathema, for more details. For other more recent events, the downing of TWA Flight 800 and Egypt Air Flight 990 are painful examples of how airliners are vulnerable targets and create a sense of helplessness in the public's mind. These seemingly disparate incidents are in fact related to each other and other historical events in unexpected ways. Just as for the case of the Kennedy family having a common timing parameter, these 2 airliner tragedies have a common positioning property. The integration of the timing and positioning attributes for these and many other historical events indicates that an itinerary is being enacted by a small group of most powerful people in the world. A full elaboration of this itinerary is provided in the DVD Hidden Timelines of Secret Societies Cracking the 9/11 Itinerary Code. To provide a historical perspective regarding the background and thinking of this, I also recommend the DVD by Chris Pinto, Riddles in Stone. Having provided a scant introduction to this concept of an itinerary, let me turn attention now to the aspects of the itinerary that pertain to David Kellerman. Before we go into those examples, let's review some fundamentals about the itinerary, specifically magical numbers and the geometry that pertains to the itinerary. Like an onion, there are several concentric layers of meaning incorporated into Pierre L'Enfant's architectural layout of the District of Columbia. Beyond the mystical homage to ancient deities, there is an occult layer of mathematical mysticism integrated into the city plan. One such mathematical value of great importance is phi. Phi has some very unique mathematical properties. One property, like pi, is that the digital sequence is transcendental and never repeats. Unlike pi, this transcendental property remains intact when it is divided into 1 or when it is squared. In each of these cases, only the first digit changes and all the subsequent digits remain the same on into infinity. The examples given here. This and many other mathematical properties has endeared this particular set of values to the Masons and other secret societies which they reiterate frequently in ritual symbolism and architecture that they hide in plain sight. In addition to these mathematical values, there are many other values that constitute an array of cryptographic itinerary coding terms. One example of integrating the cryptic term phi into L'Enfant's architectural design is evident at the east end of the mall leading to the Capitol. The compass element and the Masonic emblem shown above are symbolically imposed on this section of the mall in a very specific way. Upon close examination, the distances along the sides of the triangle are from A to B and A to C, which are along Pennsylvania Avenue and Maryland Avenue, is the value of 1 over phi in nautical miles. The distance from B to C along 7th Street is 1,000 times phi squared in feet. This pairing of distances is only possible by the imposition of this specific angle by design. Embedding this sacred geometry and mathematics into the architectural layout of our Washington, D.C. mall is very specific and very exact. In David Kellerman's case, this specificity and exactness is applied just as well. When we take a look at the lines that emanate from his home towards the Treasury, there are two lines that can be drawn, one across the top of Freddie Mac and the World Bank, or across the top of Freddie Mac and the IMF. In either case, both of these lines terminate at the Treasury building. Recall that the compass geometry on the mall is laid out such that at the point where we have a reciprocal of phi in nautical miles, the distance between those 2 points is 1,000 times phi squared in feet, or 2,618 feet. This principle is repeated in the case of David Kellerman. The distances from the two lines from David Kellerman's home to the Treasury is in fact phi squared times 10,000 yards, or 26,180 yards. The phi square coding term is often repeated in itinerary attacks. It was used in the case of JFK Jr.'s location of his crash site, as well as a directional value in the determination of the attack on JFK in Dallas. Before we go on to the next bit of evidence regarding David Kellerman, it's important to recognize who are the gatekeepers of this itinerary. You'll be able to find them in very surprising places. For instance, the National Institute of Standards and Technology was commissioned to put out a technical report that summarized the failing of World Trade Center 7 to be strictly as a result of fire. Their technical report was dealt a fatal blow by the organization Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth when they proved that World Trade Center 7 came down at 5:20 in the afternoon of September 11, 2001 at free fall acceleration. This could only happen in the case of controlled demolition. Forced to admit the free fall acceleration of World Trade Center 7 in their final report was a fatal blow to the mission of NIST to cover up the conspiracy of 9/11. In the case of David Kellerman, the role of NIST is more benign. Their role as the caretakers of our standards of measure is their function that applies in this case. The standard for converting a statute mile to a nautical mile is 1 nautical mile is a statute mile divided by 1.15077. That factor for making that conversion times 10 is exactly the distance that David Kellerman's house is from a very major landmark. That major landmark is the Mast of the Maine Memorial in Arlington Cemetery, which is a major false flag operation reference marker, which was very important in the attacks on the Pentagon in 9/11. Ironically, David Kellerman's home is also exactly 25,000 yards from the west wall of the Pentagon